Hello, my name is Leanne Smith, and I am the Director of the Whitlam Institute within Western Sydney University. I'd like to thank Huaguang Chan and the Nan Tien Institute for inviting me to participate in this 8th Symposium on Humanistic Buddhism, Humanistic Buddhist Responses to Modern Crises, and for inviting me to join Panel 1 on Creating an Inclusive Society to share with you my presentation, Engaging Young People in Our Democracy. I'd like to start by acknowledging that the Whitlam Institute stands on the land of the Darug people of the Darug Nation. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and would like to be very clear that the Whitlam Institute supports the Uluru Statement from the Heart and looks forward to its full implementation. Across the globe, the democracies of the world are under threat. Challenges such as increased securitization, limitations on free press, rising populism, extremism, fake news, corruption in government and associated loss of legitimacy have, perhaps for the first time since the Second World War, challenged the notion that democracy is the best form of government. Including and engaging young people in our democracies will be essential to revitalising any legitimacy. We know young people are passionate about so many policy issues: inclusion, environment, human rights, equality and fairness. However, our systems of democratic engagement and our way of teaching civic responsibility and rights is not reaching them or providing a useful pathway for their concerns. This presentation will explore recent research into what matters to young people, how they are engaging within democracies, and what we can do to increase their participation and satisfaction for the future of all democratic societies. Let me start by giving a bit of background to the Whitlam Institute and this work. The Whitlam Institute is a nationally significant institution delivering distinctive, bold and inspiring policy research and programs that promote common ground, inclusive national identity and civic engagement for all Australians. It's recognised across the political spectrum as delivering a nation-building agenda that will, in Gough Whitlam's words, help the great and continuing work of building a more equal, open, tolerant and independent Australia. Our work is focused on empowering all Australians to be active participants in democratic life and creating more inclusive public policy engagement with a focus on social justice and social democracy. Our institute is located in Western Sydney, a vibrant microcosm of modern Australia and all its opportunities and challenges. Our goal is to bring local issues affecting ordinary Australians into national debates and to bring national policy debates to local people. We believe that for policy change to be effective, you need to bring the people affected by the policy with you through engagement and consultation. We use our privileged location in the Female Orphan School, which you can see behind me, one of Australia's earliest heritage listed buildings, as a place for intellectual and cultural engagement for the people of Western Sydney through public events, debates, community engagement, civics education, tours and art exhibitions. Our objective is to lead courageously on issues of national importance and identity, to raise the flag, if you like, in acknowledging the complexities around such issues by bringing together the broadest church across politics to respectfully discuss and debate them with the goal of finding common ground and bringing our nation together. Our policy and research work now focuses on two themes. Firstly, the future of Australian democracy, and secondly, Australia in the world. And under both these themes, we're working on projects that explore the relationship that young people have with Australian democracy. We're delighted to be invited to join this important conference and to share this presentation that focuses on this one specific area relevant to the conference theme of inclusivity from an Australian perspective, and that is how to better include young Australians, to improve our efforts to empower youth voices and to include young people in our democracy. If we want our children to have a stake in our democracy and our society, then we have to treat them as valued citizens concerns, not because of the leaders they might one day be in our own projection of what that means, but recognising their legitimacy and their leadership as it stands today. In one small way, the Whitlam Institute's What Matters writing competition is just one avenue that encourages our young people to speak up about what's on their minds and gives voices to those young people and a platform to be heard. Now, my son is 5. He had only just started kindergarten when the coronavirus hit last year, a new word in his vocabulary and ours. And it changed childhood as he knew it. He, like all the kids around the world, didn't understand what was happening. Why can't he see grandma and granddad? Why doesn't he get to go to Harmony Day festival at school? And why, when we take him for a walk, why can't he play on the playground equipment? The other day he asked me, "Mama, if I can catch the virus, does that mean I can catch cancer?" Now, I'm sure that my husband and I are not the only ones among us in recent years who've stayed up late wondering what kind of world we've brought our child into, what range of challenges he will have to face that we never did, and whether we are at all capable of preparing him for what is coming in the world where climate change, shifting geopolitics, growing inequality, resource scarcity and threats to our environment and way of life are mounting every day. Kids have questions and kids have views about all of this. We have to find age-appropriate ways to help them grapple with these complex issues that are getting harder and harder to protect them from. They are seeing the results, and we need to let them express themselves about how it makes them feel and what they want done about it. 2019 was the 30th anniversary of the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which Australia ratified in December 1990. This means that Australia has a duty to ensure that all children in Australia enjoy the rights set out in that treaty. Article 12 of that convention states, "States parties shall assure to the child who is capable of forming his or her own views the right to express those views freely in all matters affecting the child, the views of the child being given due weight in accordance with the age and maturity of the child." Australia takes child rights very seriously. In 2013, it established the first Australian National Children's Commissioner, mandated to advocate nationally for the rights and interests of children and young people, including promoting their participation in decisions that impact on them. In 2020, the then outgoing inaugural Children's Commissioner, Megan Mitchell, launched the 2019 Children's Rights Report, based on in-person consultations with 450 children around the country and input from 22,700 children through an online national poll. These children shared their views on how Australia was doing in promoting and protecting the rights of Australia's next generation. It's an incredibly revealing and important document, and I encourage you to seek it out. Some of the key findings of this report indicate that Australian kids feel lucky to have their families and friends. They're glad that we have controls on guns. They love our weather, beaches, river, bushes, animals and plants. They value free education and good healthcare, and they appreciate our many cultures. On the downside, they are concerned. They're concerned that there is not more respect for culture and language. They worry about racism and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids and poor children and their families not having the same opportunities. They worry about homelessness, violence against children, mental health, the environment and the treatment of refugees. One of the most striking and most cited responses to the survey for me, contrary to our obligations under the Convention, was that Australian children don't feel that their voices are heard. As one 10-year-old surveyed said, "Adults sometimes think kids don't know things and ignore their ideas." It's time that Australia starts to take the concerns and priorities of Australian children seriously in how we develop policies for our country's future. We need to stop thinking about kids as future citizens and start recognising the inherent value of their perspective as children now. Despite the rhetoric that Australian children are disengaged from politics and democratic life, or worse, that they should be discouraged from engagement and protected from the worries of the world, our research and others shows that despite the trust deficit in our current democratic system, our children are actually keenly political and engaged. in new ways and on issues that matter most to them. Certainly, youth movements here and around the world focused on women's rights, climate change, and other issues demonstrate that they care and they are prepared to act. Since 2004, the Whitlam Institute has been asking Australian children what matters to them. The breadth and depth of their responses has been breathtaking. In recent years, they've raised their concerns about everything from domestic violence to playground access, climate change and the natural environment to sexual abuse, loneliness and depression to drought. So in 2020, the Institute commissioned 2 pieces of research. Firstly, a scoping paper and literature review on young people and democracy, and secondly, a report on what matters to young Australians. We commissioned the authors to analyse writing submissions to our national writing competition between 2010 and 2018. The aim of this work was to understand what young people are concerned with, how they conceptualise different issues, if and how those issues and concerns are changing over time, and what they reveal about the contemporary politics of young people. The report presents findings from the first ever analysis of 27,814 What Matters writing competition essays, using a combination of text mining and manual thematic and discourse analysis. Some of the key findings were that, firstly, the competition entries have a distinctly political character. Secondly, that there are clear patterns in what matters to students as they get older and how they've changed over the years of the competition. So over time, we've seen that there are noticeable increases in students writing about human rights, issues of social justice, such as poverty and discrimination, the environment, and climate change. Young people mainly write about social and relational themes of people, life, and the world. Entrants address how people relate to one another in families, friendship groups, across national borders, as well as the values and rights that should underpin how we treat one another. Young people write about local and global topics, specifically in relation to making the world a better place. Environment and Australia are 2 of the most common theme words across all age groups and all years of the competition. Young people write about Australia as a nation, as a people and as a country in relation to other parts of the globe. Entrants are concerned about what Australia stands for, its future position in the world, and the need for Australia to take leadership on environmental, economic, and humanitarian challenges. Entries identify diverse actors seen as important to the way society is governed. They explore different governing styles and the role of different actors, such as young people, celebrities, and politicians, as well as institutions such as the government and the United Nations. Essays emphasise ideas of care and the actions that demonstrate or deliver care. Young people imagine the future in terms of better care for people and things through individual actions and government policy. They often write from a rights-based perspective. Human, children's, women's, and Aboriginal rights are prominent concerns coming through in their writing. So despite contemporary commentary, our analysis reveals that young people's politics are not driven by single issues alone, but by the interconnections and dependencies young people see between different issues. They express a politics of care and justice that is informed by evidence and aimed at making a better Australia and a better world. The essays reveal young people are engaging with ideas about what makes for a good society, what kind of civic and political actions, communities and institutions they believe should support this, and what role they should play as individuals and as young people. The analysis shows that young people are an untapped resource for Australian democracy. Not for who they'll become as adults, but because of their concerns and ideas on social issues and how they can be addressed right now. Their writings also indicate that the civic norms and political values held by many Australian young people are not yet reflected in mainstream political cultures or current institutions and processes of democracy. In their writing, young people reflect participatory, deliberative, and reflexive norms, and the hope for a form of democracy that can be intergenerational. So in December 2019, the Institute made a submission to the Senate Legal and Constitutional Affairs Legislation Committee into nationhood, national identity and democracy. Amongst other topics, our submission drew on the Institute's research on young people and democracy. The submission highlighted a number of key themes from our research in terms of young people's attitudes to engagement with their democracy, including that young Australians want to participate in democracy differently to previous generations. They are less interested in formal memberships of traditional organisations. They see a connection between local and global issues. They prefer everyday participation to formal participation. They prefer issues-based approaches to political engagement that is interconnected rather than adherence to broad ideology. And surprise, surprise, young people do not trust political institutions or politicians. Our submission also raised what engagement in formal decision-making looks like for young people and what young people want from their democratic engagement. It made recommendations, some of which were acknowledged in the Senate Committee's report, specific to young Australians, including: we recommend that there's a need for ongoing research into how Australian youth engage with civic and political institutions, both formally and informally, and how e-democracy is being utilised and to what effect. We recommended that the results of such research should be tabled in the Federal Parliament annually. We recommended that bipartisan support is needed for an ongoing youth affairs portfolio, led in partnership with a diverse set of young Australians, or alternatively, support for a youth voice to Parliament should be considered. And finally, we recommended that further consideration should be given to the merits of decreasing the voting age to engage our citizen youth, but only in combination with national, compulsory civics and citizenship education in all schools, particularly at the Year 9 and 10 level. So in conclusion, it's our view that we must now embolden our efforts to engage young people, whether that's by creating a nationally agreed core curriculum on civics and citizenship, establishing a mechanism for a youth voice to Parliament, or by lowering the voting age. It's time to bring them into the conversation about their future and Australia's place in the world. For those of us working in policy and community engagement today, there's a lot we can't actively do out in our communities right now. And we don't know how long that will last. One thing we can do, however, is to take the time to listen to those who will be the most affected by the legacy that we have collectively created, and to give them space to be part of our democracy and take action on issues that matter to them. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.